I was actually going to do this video by myself. Just because I think that this is just kind of an important thing happening. I think it's worth discussing. It's a thing that's close to my heart, but I thought it would be cool for you guys to be here, to just chime in on your opinions, and also, if you're like, Dustin, you're crossing lines, then just do that too.
Oh boy.
But I know that you don't follow much of like pop culture stuff and things, which is
Not
great.
a lot.
No, it's great. But I don't know if you've seen any of the stuff happening with Michael Tait, who's the guy, the singer from Newsboy and Lost.
Yeah.
So, well, first of all, I just want to say this too. I think that this video, this conversation, I would say, is for believers, right? I would say is for other Christians. I think that's what I would love to talk about, because if you're not a Christian, then it's fine. I just don't know what your standard is. I don't know what sets your guidelines and your laws. I don't know what your boundaries are. For me, as a Christian, I'd say for us, we have the Bible, which says this is how you conduct yourself as a believer and as a Christian. These are the things we're called to do. And so, I don't want this to be like as like a judgy kind of thing in any way. But with some of the stuff that's happened with Michael Tait, for anyone who doesn't know, Michael Tait was a newer singer of Newsboys, man, ever since I was a kid. Like, I loved the Newsboys. Michael Tait was originally one of the singers in DC Talk, became a singer of Newsboys, and recently it came out that there was all stuff. And I know we're kind of late to the party. I don't like talking about trendy issues. It's just never the thing. But I think that we just keep hearing more and more about this, even now as we've been doing more stuff within the music, in the Christian music industry. I think it's just kind of worth talking about. Again, not as a trendy issue, but just as a thing that I would love to kind of speak on a little bit. Michael Tait, recently it came out that he was abusing drugs, that there was some inappropriate sexual misconduct stuff that was happening, forcing himself on some people after drugging them, right? Terrible things. Yeah. Things that he has admitted, maybe some stuff still coming out that he hasn't fully said, at least not said publicly, right? But Michael Tait, I would say guilty for sure, right? Messed up, dropped the ball, for years has been doing this. I think the bigger issue is that this has been happening for so long. And there's been a lot of people that we've talked to. People have posted videos like, oh yeah, like everybody knew Michael Tait was doing that. Like, this isn't news to people. Like, everyone in the industry knew this. That to me is the part that's alarming and what I think is worth the conversation, right? I don't even think this conversation is about Michael Tait as much as it is, why hasn't this been addressed? Because, and here's just to me the simple analogy. We're friends. We know each other. We love each other. Keep each other in check. I travel for work, right? If I can bring my family, I do, but I can't always. If you knew that I was traveling by myself for work, if you know I was traveling and I'm having an affair, right, with my wife, that I'm cheating on my wife, what do?
I have a relationship with both of y'all.
Yeah.
I'm going to confront you, and I'm going to be like, I'm about to tell Carrie if you don't first.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so, I mean, I not only do we have that relationship, but as a friend, as a brother in Christ, I have that obligation.
Right. And what if I say, but Richard, this is how we pay
Ain't no
bills.
but.
This is how I need to make my money. And this is how I need to make my living. And by the way, let's say we work together now. You're getting a percentage of the stuff that I'm doing. You calling me out now is risking your wallet. What do you do?
I don't want to fall into an idolatrous relationship.
Right.
Right? No, for real,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? I'm gonna, like what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna worship the golden calf of the money that's in my pocket rather than calling out the clear sin that you're doing.
And this
Can't
is
compromise that.
This is what I think the issue is.
Yeah.
Is
agreed.
when we start prioritizing, even let's just say their ministry. Let's not even call it his music career. When we start prioritizing people's ministry over their own spiritual health, and then saying, well, even if this comes out, let's just deal with it in private. It's gonna be bad for the brand, right? I think that there are, unfortunately, within the music world, all kind of people that make money off of different things. There was a man who was falling, who was struggling, and I'm sure communicated this struggle. And rather than people pulling him out at the risk of messing up the band or their income or their sales or their ticket sales or their downloads, they helped a man hide his sin. They helped a man keep it covered up so that it wouldn't be public and all these things.
Which I think's worse.
And it's worse because what you just did was you just put that man in greater bondage. And look, I'm not going to sit here and say Michael Tait is a victim. He created victims. He made his choices. But I think in a way
that's not what we're highlighting right now.
Yeah,
right, but I think he is still a bit of a victim of what even the Christian industry, what Christian entertainment can become when we start worshiping the same things that the world worships, but then calling ourselves Christians. Yeah. Because I think that what happens is that when you start to love money and you say, hey man, look, this could mess up his income. This could mess up the brand. This could affect the other guys in the band. I would say the band is not that important.
Yeah.
The label is not that important. The ticket sales are not that important. If a man, it's the scripture, what good is it to gain the world and lose your own soul? If we're not creating this kind of accountability, then we're actually not the Christian music industry. We're just the music industry. We're the same as everybody else.
Yeah.
Because look, in the secular world, that's totally normal, right? I have a very good friend who is a personal trainer. He helps people get healthy mentally, spiritually, physically. He worked for the NHL. The NHL was wanting to just, a dude gets injured on the ice. They just want, dude, just give him the drugs, give him the painkillers. We just got to keep him on the ice because we're making good entertainment. This is sports. People love seeing this guy. If this team plays without this person on the ice, everybody's going to get mad. Fans aren't going to like it. So they keep giving these guys drugs. A lot of these guys ended up getting injured more and can't play anymore. They ended up becoming addicted to drugs. A lot of them ended up losing their families because of their addiction. Their marriages couldn't function anymore. And what's happening is that the people running these things are like, dude, just keep them on the ice, okay?
Yeah, we don't care what happens.
We don't care what happens. We don't care about the people. We don't care.
Just keep them on the ice.
Don't mess up our thing. Don't mess up our business. There's lots of people affected by this. When we say that we are a Christian industry, when we are putting that label on ourselves, we are now separating ourselves because of the way we function, the things that we talk about, the content of the things that we create. We are now defining ourselves as people who function differently. So when all of a sudden a man comes and we're just saying, no, just keep him on the ice. It's the same thing. We are now no different. And I'm not sitting here trying to just call everybody out or saying the Christian industry is evil. I'm just saying that if we're going to keep one man in check, we got to keep everybody in check.
100%.
And though that man is guilty, I think part of him, think about, dude, if I'm struggling and I'm trying to get free, if you are like, dude, listen, come on, bro, I got you. We'll figure this out. You got to keep performing, bro. You got to do this. I'll help you, right? And then it's getting worse. I'm like, Richard, bro, I got to take a break. And you're like, man, look. Let's just do this. We've already committed to these dates, right? You don't want to make these people mad. You don't want to break these contracts. You don't want to end up in a financial problem. Dude, if I'm struggling and you're helping me, perpetuating that addiction, perpetuating that struggle, how much worse is that now becoming for me? Again, I'm not saying Michael Tait is a victim. He should be held accountable for the things that he did. He created real victims. But again, I think this is the problem. At the end of the day, we can't idolize how we look more than we care about the health of our brothers and sisters.
We have to understand as saints, what you do affects the body, and I'm a part of the body, right? And God has given you sphere of influence. God has given you talents. God has given you, friendships, all of that stuff, right? And whenever you walk in sin, it affects what we all got going on. We all represent our same daddy, right? And so you're representing my daddy by doing that, for real.
Yeah.
And so I think it's actually, it could be two things, right? One, I actually do believe, especially, we're talking about, a man like that with so many talents, so many influences. I believe that he did have people. I believe, again, he had people in the circle that didn't want to say anything because, man, I'm kind of benefiting from this too, or whatever. But let's just say that's not the case. All right, let's just remove that. It is difficult enough anyway for a saint to challenge another saint. We see that on a day-to-day basis, right? We see saints, just a regular day-to-day saint with another saint calling out that saint for being ungodly. You don't see that a lot anyway.
Yeah.
Now put the saint that has all of these talents and this, that, and the third or whatever. It just magnified that much more. And unfortunately, many people, they understand that. They know they living in sin, and they know that they're surrounded by a community that won't call them out. And I'm going to seek a community that much more that won't call me out.
Yeah.
Only perpetuating, what's going on.
I mean, dude, I think about King David. Did worse things. We see him. Oh, he defeated the giant, bro. He did worse things than Michael Tait, right? And yet the Bible says this is a man after God's own heart. So what I think is worth paying attention to is not the fact that a Christian man messed up, because that's been happening from the beginning of time.
Yeah.
The thing we need to pay attention to is what culture we have allowed to be created as believers, right? And someone said to us before, that's super stuck with us just in our home and with our boys, they said behavior tolerated is culture created, right? Behavior tolerated is culture created. The things that we start to tolerate and justify to say, well, this is my ministry. And the minute you start idolizing a thing is the beginning of your downfall.
Yeah.
And I think this is what has proven itself to be true in this moment, is that we have created a culture that kind of has the same value systems of the world.
Yeah.
And this is why I'm saying it's alarming. We have to be careful as believers that we are not buying into that thing, because it's not like the Christian entertainment industry can't be evil because that's not a thing. It's made up of people. Like this table can't be evil, right? People sitting around the table doing a seance or looking at porn or whatever that thing is. That now means we're creating perverted, sinful activity around a table.
Yeah.
And I would say the same thing with the industry. We can't just say, well, the Christian industry is bad.
Boom.
The Christian industry is made up of people. Like we are all susceptible to falling. We're all susceptible to sin. And we need to be willing to acknowledge the things that we are making more important than Jesus. That might be our career. That might be our income. That might be whatever. And the other reason that this is so important to me is that, you know, there's some stuff here in Branson that is just not okay, right? This is a town that stands on family and faith, right? And there are things that we've experienced, stuff outside of the things that we've experienced, things not okay in Branson.
Yeah.
And I was talking to someone about this the other day, and he's like, man, I know so much of this stuff is so hard to believe. Like, it's Branson. Like, it can't. And a week goes by. I talk to him again. We follow up, and he's like, dude, it's crazy. Like, as I've been talking to people, asking questions, I almost didn't believe you. Not only do I believe you, but I can't believe how many people know this stuff is happening. How many Christians know this stuff is happening and are doing nothing and aren't doing anything. This is where I think we need to be so careful as believers, because we are allowing, not only are we allowing other people to fall and then calling them out once they do, but we are now positioning ourselves to be ones who are a part of seeing that downfall, and we don't want to stand up and fight.
Come on. What's so unfortunate is because saints don't understand the authority that God has given us. It's like we're like, oh yeah, I'm just ready to go to heaven. But right here, right now, we're just called to cohabitate with unbelievers and share this land and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no. We need to be more, and hear me out when I say this. I know how it's going to sound. We need to be more aggressive underneath the grace of God, but we need to be more aggressive of being like, no, this is my place. Yeah. Like, this is my land. Like God gave us this land, right?
Yeah.
You know, to do what? To bring his kingdom here. So it is my responsibility of getting the darkness out of there and making this place the light, which means that anytime that I expose the darkness, then I need to call that out. Now, you can do that in love. You can do that in understanding. You can do that in respect, but you do it. You know, but you do it, right?
Yeah.
Y'all did, and you got persecuted for it.
Yeah.
Other people see that I don't want to get persecuted for it, therefore they don't do it, right? And then how on earth are we surprised that darkness is going crazy and we argue about it?
This is
darkness exists because light doesn't show up.
Evil overtakes everything when good men do nothing. When
Yeah.
good men stay silent. When Christians stay silent.
Oh, if I was an enemy, I was like, oh yeah, just be quiet.
Yeah.
Just be quiet.
Yeah.
Right?
But,
Let
and
me do
what?
my
And
thing.
then calling it grace.
Yeah.
Calling it
bull
right.
crap.
Like, that's what I'm saying. But
Passivity. That's the.
But that's what I'm saying is like there is a time to fight, especially when victims are being created, right? And I think that a lot of times, look, dude, I'm not saying that this means Christians need to go calling out everybody's sin, pointing out everybody's sin. You're doing this. You lied about this. You were wrong about this. I don't think that's the point. But I think once there are victims being created, right? Like in this situation happening within the Christian music space, like there were victims being created. There's a time that you kind of got to step up. And maybe you give grace, you walk for a little bit, but then you say, hey, dude, you're not really kicking this. We need to figure something out. Because because every time, if I'm allowing you to hurt people, then that blood's also on my hands, right? We just watched a movie recently where the guy said, choosing not to say something is saying something. You've chosen what you want to say, which is nothing.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's even louder than the words that you actually say.
Yes. And you like, and here's the thing, and this is why we need to be so cautious that we are not allowing our value system to align with the value system of the world, because this is what's so beautiful about the Bible. The Bible says no matter what, people are more important. God's people are more important. Risk your career. Risk your finances.
Risk your life.
Risk your life.
Risk your life
yeah.
on behalf of. That's exactly what we're supposed to be communicating. If we are ambassadors of the Father, and the Father was willing to lay down his life for us, then if we're supposed to be his foes, his light, to do the things that he's supposed to be, to communicate to the world how Christ loves us, then I am willing to lay down my life on your behalf. Like, I'm willing to lose it all on your behalf. That's what we're supposed to communicate, but we don't. But we don't. But unfortunately, Christians aren't seen in that light because so many Christians just don't do that.
Yeah.
Like, it's whenever you think of the word Christian, like even from unbelievers, whenever you think the word Christian, what comes up, right? A lot of times people think judgy or hypocritical or passive or just some people that you can just walk all over or whatever, right?
Apathetic.
But even within the Christian culture, whenever you hear the word Christian, are you thinking of like they're using their divine authority? They're standing for what's right. They're drawing a line to the sand. They're willing to put their finger in the face of giants. They're willing to go to wherever to speak on the behalf of people, to love them, to radically give to that person. Are they even willing to? Yes, to give grace and give understanding, but also, ain't no but, alongside of that, to call them out and be like, listen, I'm going to tell what you do is wrong. I'm also going to lead you to Christ,
Well, because I think pastors are building audiences and not armies, because even the pastors are not willing to get in the fight. They're lulling their community to sleep. They're building the brand. They're building the big church, and they're doing nothing.
Yeah,
Call them out.
And this is
That's
I
so
think
good.
the Bible talks very clearly about all of these things, right? If you try and save your own life, you will lose it, right? For eternity. But those who are willing to lay down their life actually gain life, the best kind of life, right? And I think that we have become so weak, we're afraid to speak up on certain things that are just definitely truth, things that are definitely wrong. And it's because our value system has aligned with the same value system of the world. This is what I'm saying. This conversation, I think, is for believers, because if you're not a Christian, then that's cool. You can make your own value system. Again, I don't know what sets your set of rules.
There's no accountability for a non-believer.
But for me as a Christian, the Bible tells me what's important, and it doesn't say my life. It says eternal life, it says Jesus, and it says how I live this life here determines my eternity, right? Meaning I can't just cling to the things of this world. I need to be willing to get into the fight. And the one movie that we watched recently, and this is an extreme jump from Michael Tait to the stuff happening in Branson to the Holocaust, right? But we watched Bonhoeffer. I don't know if you've heard this movie, but the whole thing basically is about how when the Holocaust happened, it was because first, Hitler came in and he kind of got the church stoked about the same thing. He kind of honestly messed up their value system a bit to get excited about having power and gaining popularity back, gaining influence back, all this stuff. Once they were seduced by that thing, it was too late. They bowed their knee, they stayed quiet, and the reason the Holocaust was allowed to happen was because the church stood by and did nothing. Because it was easier, because they didn't want to get in the fight. They didn't want to make people mad. They didn't want to risk losing their job as a priest or as a whatever they did in the local community.
You go with the majority.
You go with the majority. And this is I guess this is just what I'm saying is the challenge. And again, this is not to point a finger at anybody in the industry, to point a finger at anybody in Branson or at another Christian. This is for all of us. This to me should be a wake-up call. Throughout history, horrible things have happened in the world because Christians didn't stand up and speak up. They've called it forgiveness. They've called it grace. They've called it all these things. And the one line, and I think this was kind of a controversial line in the movie, but he said, when are we going to stop pretending that teaching and praying is enough? Now look, obviously praying is the most powerful thing on the planet. But the point is that if David would have just prayed for Goliath, if Elijah would have prayed for Jezebel, there is a time that we also have to put action to our faith, even like you said, even up into the point of risking our own life. Now, that sounds scary because most Christians won't be like, oh, I want to die for that. I'll risk my life for the gospel. We should, but the reason that we should and the reason that doesn't sound that crazy and extreme is because when I believe there is heaven, when I believe in the hope of heaven, then like, this life isn't everything.
And the world means nothing. Like the world can offer you nothing.
If this life gets cut short for me, then I'm just going someplace better anyway. It's only when we idolize this life that we become so fearful of losing the things that we have now. We are supposed to live now. We're supposed to live now for the things later, not to live now for the things now. And this is what creates this perpetuating problem.
You look at other disciples, look at the prophets who were killed because of their faith. They wasn't preparing their lives for the moment that they would get killed or anything like that. They were just so infatuated with the Lord. They were just so infatuated with God, and they understood that this was not their heavenly home, that they were, so whenever it was time to give their life for, they're like, ha, ha, Peace. Like, what can you do to me?
Yeah.
You know, to live is Christ and to die is gain. I'm winner, chicken dinner. I get to experience the Lord right now as I'm living, and I get to tell more people about God so they can experience him. And then whenever I die, I'm present with him, right?
Yeah.
What can you do to me? That created, walking with the Lord created so much strength within them, so whenever they were faced with death, they could face it. Unfortunately, we're so infatuated with this life that whenever we're faced with death or we're faced with persecution, whenever we're faced with all of these hardships, we love our life so much we don't want to risk that, and so we pull back because we love it.
Yeah.
Let's stop being scared of death, and let's just be so infatuated with the life that God has given us, right?
Yeah.
And the life what's to come, which produces hope, and that's going to produce us strength.
Yeah.
And so whenever the time comes, boom, you're willing to do it because you
Yes.
prepared your whole life for it of loving God.
Yeah. And I think, and the other thing I think of, like, we have friends now in the faith world, in the Christian entertainment world, right? People in these bands, some of these people who are artists, who are our friends. To me, it's like, man, I want to know that my friends who genuinely want to know Jesus, who also have struggles because they're human, that they are in a space that's going to protect them, right? That's going to nurture their walk with God, that's going to nurture their character and care more about that than their social media following and their record sales and their ticket sales. Like, I think, and that's where I think it becomes very personal. We have to realize that, like, it is okay to sacrifice in this life, man. It's okay to lose your stuff. And, you know, you made mention of, like, no, with the stuff here in Branson, we don't have a show here now, right? Like, we had to shut the show down because of some of the stuff, because of some of the stances that we took on certain things. I'm not saying, oh, now we're some great. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that sometimes there is a cost, but at the same time, when we trust that our life is in the hands of God, God's been opening up so many cool doors. And so, like, we willingly lay down the things that we built to see life come about. And, you know, I had it's sad how we start twisting this stuff because, again, with the whole, like, Michael Tait thing, people don't, well, now it's going to make the Christian industry look bad. Now it's going to no, you know what makes the Christian industry look bad? Is when a man falls and now we just point at the man, we boycott him and we boycott his band. Yeah. Even though they might be like, well, hey, okay, well, yeah, this was wrong. We should try and change. Because now there's people struggling with that who maybe are going to be afraid to repent because it's like, oh, they just let him take the fall. But everyone who could have been helping that stayed silent, there's no accountability for them. This is what should be different about us, is we don't idolize these things. We say, hey, look, fans, please pray for him. Pray for victory in this area. There is not one sin in the world that can separate you from the love of Jesus, right? So, like, we celebrate this man who wants to get better. We celebrate this stuff. How different is that? And if fans are mad or fans are offended or we don't sell tickets now, then so be it. Yeah. But I think that when we're willing to lay those things down, it's so crazy how obsessed we become with image and our brands. And we become so convinced that the platform is the most valuable thing that we have, more valuable than you. The platform
God's
you've
given
built,
us this platform. And so if I say anything exposing sin, it's going to ruin my platform. I'm like, so you're saying that God green lights the sin that's going on and you're not saying anything. What you become is a bad steward of what God has given you, right? You didn't protect her. You weren't the watcher of the wall. Yeah. Yep. And now you've allowed the enemy, you've partnered with the enemy by saying something or by not saying something. You've partnered with the enemy, and now he's going to take over the very thing that God has given you to protect, to make his name famous. Yeah. Right?
And that's when I want to go back to that book, The Next Generation Leader. He talks about, like, Christians don't compromise on their way to the top when they're building something. They compromise on the way down when things start to get smaller. And so it's like God's entrusted you with this community. You've built such a massive community of people following you. But
now you don't want to have less than what you had at the top.
You can't handle.
So you do everything you can to fight to protect this thing.
Because the world has lured you in, all the comforts of the world, maybe even nice things or whatever it is. You know what I mean? That's like you're afraid to lose. So you can't
and again,
say anything.
This isn't to point fingers. This is just to say how tricky this is, man. This is just to say how, like, we have to be constantly aware of how much we love the world. There are people right now who, like, I have a friend who, you know, grew up without his dad in the picture. Yeah. And when he was like 16, his dad, like, bought him a new car. And he's like, Dad, you know what I would love more than a new car is for you to have been at my baseball games. Yes, it's for you. I would have rather you been there. I don't even care about driving. You were gone and for what? Just so when I turned 16, you could buy me a car. That's not what and And yet that dad could be convinced, I'm doing this for my family. I'm doing this for my kids. And I think this is where we have to be
or
so
even for the
careful.
Lord.
Or even for the Lord.
And
Yes.
building a whole ministry at the
Dude,
cost
how-
of your
Even
family.
How many families have fallen apart from people in ministry? And this is what I'm saying. Look, this is not the point of finger. I
Sure.
take this as a warning for me.
Yes.
How much have I come to love my career and love my influence so much, the circles of people that I'm around, that I would risk protecting that before I protect my own walk with God, before I protect my family, and before I protect my boys' hearts, right?
Y'all understand this because you walked, and we've talked about this. We walked in the same circle. Right now, as a pastor, I am asking people if I can use their building to do church service, right? Prior to that, I had this big old building, big old gorgeous building, right? Buildings that so many people came to us. Can we use your building for this? Can we use your building for this? Can we do this here? Can we do this here? Right? And it was great, right? Big parking lot, acres, all of that stuff. You know, the bells and whistles, everything looked amazing, beautiful in it, right? And I had this big old, this big old congregation, right? That yelled amen and had blah, blah, whatever, right? And because I partnered with the Lord, right? And stood up for what is right, they're like, boom, you got to go. And don't think for a second the enemy didn't come in and still does come in and like, now you got to beg for a building. Like, where you going to be? Like, oh man. Or being in the theater that seats X amount of people or whatever, and I'm not seeing a quarter of that taken up, looking out there and preaching and like, but remember when you had this and this and this and blah, blah, whatever, right? It's really easy to partner with the enemy to be like, yeah, you see, I learned my lesson. I won't do that again.
Yeah.
Or that's and how beautiful God is when God comes in, he was like, no, Richard. Now, just think about the joy that you have right now. Just think about the assurance, the peace that you have. Think about the intimacy that you have with me right now in wake of all of that stuff. Do you really want to go back with not having that same intimacy that you have with me right now in hopes to have even that much more? I had a decision to make. And I'm like, God, I ain't going back.
Yeah.
He goes, I don't want you to go back. And then understand there's a new normal. And it's beautiful what God is building from that right now.
And the impact too that you're having, even if it is smaller numbers.
A smaller number,
the impact, because the world celebrates numbers and how big things are. We experience that at Skid Row. Like, we're just taking a small group of men and discipling them for years, and just investing into them. And no one saw it. No one saw what was happening. And like he always says, like, the church would celebrate it more if there's like, we went and fed 10,000 people on Skid Row tacos
Looks
today.
good on
Or
the
we
brochure.
passed out 10,000 tacos. That looks so great. But no one would care if we are like, oh, we sat down with the same dude every week and had coffee and like.
You gave $10,000. You gave
for 4 years.
10,000 people one taco for one day, and they were hungry 3 seconds later. But you're sitting down with a group of it. That's why. Just think about the whole deal of discipleship, right? Or just people. When Jesus fed the 5,000 and the 4,000, the people were like, "Oh my goodness, let's make him king right here, right now." And what Jesus did, he withdrew. He's like, "All these people want is a fish sandwich. That's why they want to make me king." No. I want people who really want to make me king the way I'm going to come the king in the right way, and I'm going to do that through the process of discipleship, right? And he took those 12 men and he lived life with those jokers, right? And then he said, yo, whatever I got, all right, Massachusetts, whatever I got, boom. And I want you to disciple everybody else too. Truth transference and life transference, not just about the fish sandwiches. And we know Jesus today, 2,000 plus years later, because Jesus did truth and life transference. And he's like, continue that. And boom. What y'all did fed the world. What 10,000 tacos did was fed a person just their flesh for a moment.
And I think it's such a good point. I was thinking as you were saying that, how crazy that, like, what created the greatest and most lasting impact, what actually changed the world wasn't the things that Jesus did for the most people. It was what he did for the smallest amount of people, right? Like what he did with the disciples was more world changing than turning a couple pieces of bread and a couple fish into enough to feed thousands and thousands. It was more powerful that he sat, not that he built a platform. Because those people that he fed, the towns he went into and healed, where were they when Jesus was getting crucified? Right? That stuff doesn't create as big of an impact as we like to tell ourselves it does, because it feels good when the numbers are big.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? It feels good.
We're accepted.
Yep,
And-
you're accepted.
And
Yep.
not only that, but look what I have to show for this. 5,000 families just got fed because I did a miracle, right?
Yeah.
That feels better than the stuff that we wouldn't really see, the stuff that would sound boring. Yeah, and I've been sleeping in a tent with these dudes for 3 years.
Yeah.
Like, this dude gets gas over this. Any berry that he eats, he's farting in the tent, right? Like,
Every berry that
like
he eats.
I'm just saying, like, think of the things that Jesus had to endure doing life with people.
Yeah.
That sounds stupid, talking about people farting in a tent. But the reality is that the fact that Jesus was willing to do it, to be in those tents, to spend time, to listen to them complaining and moaning, knowing what foods they liked, what they didn't like, understanding their sense of humor, it was so much bigger than feeding thousands and thousands of people. And this is what we have come to do as believers, as humans. And I'm saying, I'm guilty.
Yeah.
I am making this, I'm having this conversation for me because she knows more than anybody. I am the most guilty person on the planet of being more excited about my career and the numbers than anything else. I have to constantly keep myself in check.
Yeah.
I have to constantly have these
So I love
conversations,
y'all.
constantly
So I
build
love y'all.
accountability to say, man, because dude, it just hit home so much when you said about the big church and all this stuff, and now you feel like you lost, right? And I think if we were to put a word to it, you feel like you lost. I feel like I lost. I don't have a show. We wanted to stand up for these girls and help these people in this thing, and no one else wanted to stand with us, and we were the ones who had to give up the show. I lost, okay? Everyone else, they won. But the thing is what is lost? Lost, you lost because your numbers are smaller. You're only considering that a loss when your value system is the same as the world, which is to say, your numbers were big, now they're small. That's a loss. Why is that a loss? Because the world says that small numbers are less important. The world says, and this is what I'm saying, is that our job as believers is we don't define what we do by what the world says. We live by this set of rules that says, no, the one is more important than anything. Jesus said, I'm going to sit at this dude's house for tea. They're trying to make me king over here. They're trying to have me do this and fight these wars. I'm just going to sit and have tea with this guy.
Yep.
That got him killed.
Yep.
But he didn't see even losing his life as a loss. That was the win because his definition of loss was not the world's definition of loss. And as long as we keep defining winning the way that the world does, we're going to keep bowing our knee to the things that the world does.
Yep.
And this is why, going back to Michael Tait in this Christian industry, we see, oh, he lost. This is a loss. Anybody who's affected by it, they lost. It's not a loss. Sin does not disqualify us. Bowing our knee to losing a job, losing a career. What we have to remember as believers is our job is to protect other believers, to keep their priorities straight, no matter what it costs you. Again, I'm not saying just go calling out everybody's sin and being sin police. I'm saying caring so much that, like, dude, you might lose it. I'll lose this with you, bro. Like, I will walk with you through this because I think that what's in here is more important than those people screaming the lyrics to your song. More important than how much money we're making as a label. More important to how much we're doing. Like, again, we don't know the full circumstance of this. All I know is that if a believer would have fought with him and wrestled him and been like, bro, stop. You're hurting people. How did everyone know and this kept going? It kept going because they let it keep going.
Yep.
I love that y'all wins and losses. Nebuchadnezzar pleaded with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. For one, Nebuchadnezzar, he identified the fruit of them loving the one true God. Like, he identified it, right? That's why they were elevated, right? He identified it. And so whenever they were like, hey, yo, man, they're not bowing down to this image, Nebuchadnezzar pleaded with those, like with those three. They were like, hey, man, just worship, man. Just bow down. And so now we talk about wins and losses, right? And they're like, no. Like, God can deliver us from this fire. But if he doesn't, just know, I could be dead and gone. But as we are burnt to a crisp, loving God, apart from this life, I just want to let you know you took an L. You lost. We didn't bow down to this, right?
Yeah, dude. Yes.
And that is,
on,
and so that is what it looks like of getting a win right there.
That's so good.
Yo, so let's make this personal with you all, right? Y'all were like, boom, I no longer have a show here, right? But just to let you know, I didn't bow down to what you're doing. I could care less how many tickets that you could have given us. I could care less how much money that you've given us. I could care less how much. Don't get me wrong. It hurts. It hurts.
Yeah.
That fire would have hurt them, right?
Yeah.
It hurts that I don't have the show that God has given me the talents to do it. It hurts that you put my name through the mud. It hurts that you tried to ruin my reputation. It hurts. But just so you know, I didn't bow down to the golden image. Just so you know, I advocated to the very people that you hurt. Just so you know, I could give two dead flies smash of how massive you were. I was still willing to point my finger in your face and tell you like you're sinning. Just so you know, I'm still communicating that I love you despite all of this stuff. And still, I'm eating, right? Still God is providing for me. Winner, chicken dinner, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what we have to do as saints of like, listen, stop listening to Nebuchadnezzar and start being so in love with the Father. You understand that even though you're in the fire, God is like, he's giving you that much strength and you can just find joy in the fact that I didn't bow down to the enemy. That's what I'm talking about.
I think this is where, like, again, this is why I said in the very beginning of this is for Christians as a warning for all of us. This is not the point for you, like, again, we're right, they're wrong, we're wrong, they're right. Like, this is not a matter of who's right and wrong. Actually, it is. It's a matter that God is right. And what God says is important is right.
Boom.
What he says matters, it matters. And I think that we can joyfully lay down the other counterfeits to experience the fullness of what God has. And again, why did we start this conversation talking about Michael Tait and all this stuff? I think it's because it is so easy for us as Christians to become consumers, to let our value system align itself with the world. And then we, without even realizing it, end up being fooled. I am guilty of this. Like, I don't know. I feel like I keep referencing like the label or this. I don't know who did what, who was in his life. My point is that if we as Christians cared more about people than our stuff, our brands, our income, we would create an actually very life-giving culture where other people failing in sin would feel free to come in and admit their sin, to be exposed and to be like, dude, this is where I find life even in the midst of brokenness. This is where I find life even in the midst of the embarrassing things that I've done, right? Like, my prayer is that Michael Tait in this, though there are going to be very real repercussions, as there should, there are consequences to decisions. My hope is that he feels the most loved he's ever felt in his life. Not shunned from a community of believers, of Christians who should have been praying for him this whole time, right? And I think that, like, our responsibility, we actually are called to call out sin. Again, people, you know, they always talk about, well, look at the speck in your own, or before you point out the speck in your brother's eye, look at the log in your own eye. Yes, it doesn't say don't point out the speck in your brother's eye. It just says take out the log in yours first.
There you go.
Then deal with the speck in somebody else's. And
so
for the sake of helping them. Like, if sometimes it's fun to be like, you got a speck. I don't care if you can see or not. I just like telling you got a speck, right? But am I going to be there to help you see? If it's a surgery, when your eye patch, am I going to
cost me something?
Even if it costs me something, am I going to go with you to get groceries? Am I going to go help you while you're in recovery? And this is the thing that we need to be willing to do as believers, is to walk with people through the garbage, even if it affects us in a negative way, even if it takes away our worldly accolades, our worldly treasures, worldly reputation. Boom. We need to be willing to lay any of it down to see someone made whole, because that's what Jesus did for us. He laid it all down so that we could be made whole. And this is why I'm not saying Michael Tait's the bad guy. I'm not saying the industry's the bad guy. I'm not saying people in Branson are the bad guy. I'm not saying these other churches are the bad guy. Actually, let me rephrase that. I'm saying we're all the bad guy. God is the good guy. And it is our job to continue to fight to honor the one good guy that exists, the one good guy in the universe. That's what we're all trying to do. More than this stuff, more than what the world can give us, what the God of the universe gave to us was everything. Nothing else can replace or even compare to what he's given. Therefore, I will lay down anything that he might be glorified in my life, and that I might experience the wholeness that comes from relationship with him and only him over the things of the world. Man, look, anytime Jesus calls people out, he's calling out the Christians, right? And that's why I think, like, he's calling out the Pharisees, the religious teachers. And I just think, Matthew 23:25, he says, what sorrow awaits you teachers of the religious law and you Pharisees, hypocrites, for you're so careful to clean the outside of the cup and the dish, but inside you are filthy, full of greed and self-indulgence. You blind Pharisee, wash the inside of the cup and the dish, and the outside will become clean too. What sorrow awaits you teachers of the religious law, you Pharisees, hypocrites, For you are like whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, but filled on the inside with dead people's bones and all sorts of impurities. And that is like such an intense scripture, right? That Jesus literally says to the religious teachers. And again, I'm considering myself in that group. Like, what sorrow awaits me when I'm so concerned with making sure my brand is polished, my ministry is polished. Like, what sorrow, woe to me, what sorrow awaits me when I'm so concerned. I clean the outside of the cup that everybody sees, but I want to take time to clean the inside because it's harder, it's dirtier. It's just if I could just quick scrub this up and be good. And this is just, I think that we can't take this lightly. We live in a culture where the enemy is constantly wanting to come in to steal, to kill, and destroy. What is he trying to steal, kill, and destroy? Trying to steal, kill, and destroy our joy, our sense of purpose, our sense of hope, our sense of wholeness, our identity, our relationships,
our calling to reproduce, to multiply this.
All of this. And if the enemy wants to steal, kill, and destroy these things, I think that in our minds, we believe this is going to be obvious. Like saying, like, "Hey, come do some drugs, buddy." Like, "Hey, buddy, come look at some naked women."
Like,
right?
I'm like old school Bible man.
Yeah. Like, and dude, I'm pretty sure after thousands of years of the enemy messing with humans, I think he's learned some pretty good strategies. Like I would say that he's so good that maybe he can even be at work and we don't notice it until it's too late. Yeah. That's why we need relationships. It's why we need to live life like this. It's why we need to be willing to say, God, you can take anything, even at the cost of my humiliation. Yeah. Because if I lose my soul, if I lose myself with you, if I start leading people astray, what sorrow awaits me when I've made sure that everything on the outside is polished and inside I'm dead, like a tomb, like a nice looking tomb, like a really, really nice looking expensive tomb, inside just dying. And this is what I think as believers, when we are so quick to tuck our tail between our legs and to think like culture because we don't want to offend people, we don't want to ruffle feathers, we cower in fear, and then we say, listen, it's grace. We're supposed to love her. I want them to see a difference in me. No, you're allowing sin. That's not people seeing a difference. Their secular friends do that too.
That's Adam. That's all it is. It's not grace. It's passivity. Yep. Like, all we know. I mean, and again, I don't want to. We know that Adam was there with Eve, but can you imagine? Like, we don't know how long that conversation was between the serpent and Eve. All we do know is Adam was right there, and he saw the whole thing went down. He could have given you a play-by-play of what went down, and he said nothing, right? And it's like, and don't think for a second like the convictions within him was like, I don't think that's right. That ain't right. He didn't say that. I don't know. Whatever, right? And he just allowed the person that he was called to cultivate, to love, to take care of, right? To grow all of this stuff together. He allowed the enemy to completely deceive her. Right? And the enemy changed his mind, right? And then he just went right along with it. We are doing the exact same thing. The people that we're called to love more than anything, right? We're brothers and sisters, we're supposed to. We see the enemy just having all of these conversations and them being deceived and taking bite after bite after bite after bite. And we're like, well, God, but I'm not biting. He goes, but you are. You are, though. You are biting right there. Adam's first sin wasn't biting biting the apple. It was just him being passive, of being okay for it. The very first job that God gave him was like, cultivate this garden, protect it, grow it, or whatever, right? And then the very parasite came in to challenge that, right? And he just allowed it to happen. That was Adam's first sin. Yeah. But anyway,
and I think
we just keep doing it.
I think that maybe kind of final takeaway is this, just going back to the analogy of like, if I'm traveling, I'm on the road and I'm having an affair with my wife, you confronting me, talking to my wife, encouraging me to maybe step back for a minute. It might be embarrassing for me. It might cost me. Yeah. As my friend, that it could embarrass me and cost me. But you will still do it because you know that any embarrassment that I feel, any finances that might cost me, my soul is worth far more. And you loving me allow me to be both embarrassed and to experience a cost. And I think this is where we need, and this is what I think is, and again, I think just maybe kind of a thing to even end on this thought, is that the Bible defines what love is. Love is actually you being willing to see me be embarrassed at the sake of restoring my family, at the sake of raising my sons in the way that God calls me to raise my sons, right? People would say, well, if you embarrass him, that's not loving, man. Like, that's going to make him feel dumb. He might end up, like, to me, love is the fact that you want what's best for me, and you love me so much that you love my wife, you love my boys, you love the people in my life, and you say, Dustin, this is going to hurt, bro. But, like, a change needs to be made, and I know that doesn't feel good for you to hear that. But actually, this is me loving you. It's the same with my boys. I always say we create boundaries. We tell them you can't play in the street. I don't care how much they want to play in the street. I'm not letting them play in the street. They're mad at me. You're a bad dad. You don't give us what we want. We don't even not that they say that, but I'm saying, like, all those arguments, right, that a kid could. I'm not going to change what's most loving for them just because they don't get it. Just because they don't agree. Just because they can't comprehend, just because they're stuck in the they're in the moment with their fun that they can't think clearly. And this is the thing, when we are in the moment with our own sin, sometimes we can't think straight. We need to welcome people in to come and say this stuff. And all I'm saying is that I think as Christians we should just be really careful to continue to pray and ask God to define what actual love is in our life. I want to be close to God, and I want to give you permission to help me be closer to God, as much as it might hurt me, dude, as much as it might be uncomfortable for me. You would be hating me to allow me to live a life that is drifting from God, and you to let me do it so you don't hurt my feelings. That's what I'm be more mad at you for in eternity, for right? When I'm standing before God, he's like, dude, you drifted. Well, why didn't Richard say anything? Oh, well, he didn't want to hurt your feelings. Is that the conversation we want to have someday?
No, it takes two things. It takes for the believer being teachable and, like, hearing it and humble enough to hear correction or someone calling you out and calling out your sin. You have to, I just think God can do anything in your life if you're open to hearing whatever it is, even if it's really hard. But then also the person calling out in love needs to be bold and say it and speak up. I got saved while I was engaged to, I was a non-believer, and then I became a believer, and the guy I was engaged to was not a believer. And I started feeling conviction for the very first time because we were living together, sleeping together, engaged, and just playing house. And so I remember wanting to talk to someone about it, and I went to see our pastors at church. It was the youth pastors at the time, and they were very challenging, very loving, but, like, listen, if you want God's best, like, you guys cannot be living together and sleeping together before marriage. Like, if you want God's best, like, we're not telling you what to do, but, like, you need to read your Bible and, like, really pray about this. And he left there so offended, so angry, cussing, was so mad. And I left there, like, ready to hear it. Like, I want God's best. Like, tell me what to do. Like, nothing worked the way I did it before. I want to do what God says.
That's so good.
And it was just crazy. It's crazy thinking about, like, had they not been bold enough to, they could have really risked being, like, me being so offended too, and both of us,
or leaving the church and no longer going there, right?
Or like, just leave. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they didn't. They stood for truth, and they did it in a loving way, but were very confrontational to me. And that confrontation brought so much transformation to my life. And I think about, like, all I would have missed had I not had a teachable spirit and an open heart to, like, hear and want more. Like, that's what we're called to do, to sharpen each other. And so, man, like, all the stuff we've done, even getting married too, like, I think of, like, if they wouldn't have said that, it's possible that I could have still been stuck in that same place in my life, just still, partying and married to someone who, like, didn't love the Lord, and just the destruction, like the path of destruction my life would have went down had they not stood up and told me the truth.
And with that, like, think about that. That sets you on the path to experience the best, God's best.
Yes.
Right? I mean, look at the family. Look at the family.
Brought me
and
another.
I am benefiting from the words that those youth pastors said. Like me, our family, our community, all of that stuff. So
and that's what I think, again, the encouragement is, don't, with a heart of love, let's just create a culture where, like, we value people more than our ministries. We value people more than our brands. We value people more than the stuff we do with the masses. We're not demonizing the masses. We're not demonizing the ministry. We're not demonizing the ticket sales and the packed out arenas. But we're not prioritizing them over the one, right? Yeah. That's what Jesus modeled to us. People are important. I think when we live like that, we're going to notice more fruit and more transformation anyway. And sometimes it might feel smaller. It might feel like a loss in the eyes of the world, by the measurement of the world, by the world's standard of measurements, how they see things as being valuable. Yeah. But just like Jesus, the impact that is created will be greater. It will be more life-giving, more saving, and will change things for all of eternity. Boom. Right?